It started like any other day. My wife, Candace, or Candy as she liked to be called, kissed me goodbye and headed off for her planned girls' trip. She and her group of college friends had organized this getaway for months. Something about reconnecting and taking a break from the stresses of life. I wasn't suspicious at all. Candy and I had been married for 5 years, and while we had our ups and downs like any couple, I thought we were solid. At least I used to. I had just landed a major contract at work, a deal so big it would let us start thinking seriously about the family we'd been planning. The timing couldn't have been better. I even joked with Candy the day she left. When you get back, let's finally talk about getting that nursery started. She smiled, but it felt distant. I chalked it up to her being preoccupied with her trip. Candy had been a little off for a while, snapping at me over small things, but I figured everyone went through phases. The weekend came and went without much thought. I was busy catching up on work and thinking about how to surprise Candy when she got home. But when Sunday night rolled around and there was no call, no text, not even a quick, "I'm home," I started to worry. I sent her a message and got no reply. That's when the first pang of doubt hit me, a cold knot forming in my stomach. By Monday morning, I was calling her phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. I contacted her closest friend from the trip, Sarah, and she gave me an answer that sent my world spinning. She, left early, Sarah stammered. I thought she told you. Something about needing space. Space? From what? From me. My hands were shaking as I hung up the phone. Candy hadn't even come home. I sat in our empty house, staring at her untouched side of the closet, wondering if she had just decided not to come back. I didn't hear from her again for nearly 3 years. 3 years. That's how long it had been since Candy vanished without a trace. At first, I'd held on to hope. Maybe she just needed time, or maybe there was something deeper she was struggling with and couldn't explain. I waited, agonized over her silence, replayed every argument and interaction in my head, wondering where I'd gone wrong. But as months turned into years, that hope curdled into something darker. Anger, bitterness, and finally, resignation. I threw myself into work to cope. That big contract I landed the week she left, it became my lifeline, pulling me into long hours and constant travel. I stopped wearing my wedding ring after the first year. Friends and family stopped asking questions, though I knew they were still curious. She just left, I'd say flatly when pressed, and they'd give me those sympathetic looks that made me feel worse. But I'd started to move on, or at least I thought I had, until the day she came back. It was a Tuesday evening, unremarkable in every way. I was sitting on the couch, absent-mindedly flipping through channels, when I heard a knock at the door. Not the quick, polite rap of a delivery driver, but a slow, deliberate knock, like whoever was on the other side was gathering courage. I opened the door, and there she was, Candy. For a moment, I couldn't speak. She looked the same, but different. Her hair was longer, and there were faint lines on her face that hadn't been there before. She looked nervous. And then I saw her, a toddler, no older than 2, clutching Candy's hand. A little girl with soft curls and wide, innocent eyes. "Can I come in?" Candy asked softly. Her voice was familiar, but it hit me like a hammer. I stepped aside without saying a word. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what I was seeing. The little girl clung tightly to Candy's leg, shyly hiding behind her as they entered. Candy knelt down and whispered something to her, coaxing her forward. "This is Lily," Candy said, glancing at me. "She's my daughter." I felt the words like a slap. My jaw tightened, and I could feel the heat rising in my chest. "Your daughter?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Candy, where the hell have you been?" She winced, as if she'd been expecting the question but still wasn't ready to answer. "It's complicated," she said. "Complicated?" I snapped, my voice rising. "You disappeared for 3 years, Candy. No calls, no texts, nothing. And now you just show up on my doorstep with her?" I gestured toward the child, who flinched at my tone. Candy immediately pulled Lily closer, her maternal instinct kicking in. "Tim, please," she said, her eyes pleading. "I didn't know where else to go." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you need me? After 3 years of silence? Now you decide to show up?" Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. The emotions I'd bottled up for years came flooding out. Rage, hurt, betrayal. Whose kid is she, Candy? I demanded. And don't you dare lie to me. Candy hesitated, her lips trembling. She's Jake's, she finally admitted. Jake, my boss, my friend, or at least he used to be. The man whose parties Candy had started waitressing at right before she left. My knees felt weak and I gripped the back of the couch for support. You left me for him. My voice broke and I hated how vulnerable I sounded. Candy shook her head quickly. It wasn't like that. I didn't leave you for Jake. She stopped as if searching for the right words. I made a mistake, Tim. A huge mistake. And I didn't know how to face you after I found out I was pregnant. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She'd cheated on me with my boss, gotten pregnant, and instead of dealing with it, she'd just run away. And now, after all this time, she expected me to… What? Forgive her? Why are you here, Candy? I asked coldly. What do you want from me? She took a deep breath, looking down at Lily, who was now playing with the hem of her dress, blissfully unaware of the tension in the room. I need help, Candy said finally. Jake, he's not in the picture anymore. He didn't want her. Her voice cracked, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the woman I used to love, the one I thought I'd spend my life with. I wanted to tell her to leave, to take her betrayal and her lies and walk out of my life forever. But then I looked at Lily. She wasn't to blame for any of this. She was innocent, caught in a storm she didn't create. And for some reason, that made it harder to say the words. Instead, I stood there in silence, my mind racing. Candy waited, her eyes full of desperation, and for the first time, I realized I held all the power. I'll think about it, I said finally, my voice icy. But don't think for a second that I'm doing this for you. Her shoulders sagged in relief, but I wasn't finished. You'll stay in the guest room, I added sharply, and we'll see what happens next. As Candy nodded, I turned and walked into the kitchen, needing space to think. But one thing was clear. Candy might have come back, but she wasn't getting the life she'd left behind. Not without a fight. The first night with Candy and Lily in the house was suffocating. I barely slept, replaying the surreal events of the evening over and over. How could she just show up like this, expecting me to accept everything? And Jake. I'd trusted him. I couldn't decide which betrayal hurt more, hers or his. By morning, I had made one decision. If Candy thought she could waltz back into my life without explaining everything, she was dead wrong. Over breakfast, I watched her from across the table. She looked different now, her confidence replaced by something quieter, almost meek. Lily sat between us, happily munching on cereal, her tiny feet swinging beneath the chair. She was adorable, no doubt about that. But every time I looked at her, all I could see was Jake. We need to talk, I said abruptly, breaking the silence. Candy glanced up, startled. Not now, she whispered, glancing at Lily. Yes, now, I insisted, my voice low but firm. We'll go outside. She'll be fine for a few minutes. Candy hesitated, but she must have realized I wasn't giving her a choice. She followed me out to the back porch, where I leaned against the railing, arms crossed. The morning sun did nothing to warm the icy tension between us. Start talking, I said, and don't leave anything out. She took a shaky breath. After that trip, I was confused. Things between us weren't great. Don't you dare blame me for this, I cut in. I'm not, she shot back, her voice trembling. But I was overwhelmed, Tim. I made a horrible mistake that night at Jake's party. I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did. Her words hit like a sledgehammer. You didn't plan it? I echoed bitterly. That's supposed to make me feel better? I felt guilty, she continued, ignoring my sarcasm. I tried to move past it, to pretend it never happened, but then I found out I was pregnant. I couldn't stay, Tim. I couldn't face you knowing the truth. So you ran, I said flatly. You ran and left me here, to wonder what the hell I did wrong. And Jake? He just let you go? Her face darkened. Jake didn't want a child. He told me to take care of it. But I couldn't. I decided to keep Lily, even if it meant doing it alone. The anger bubbling inside me threatened to boil over. You had no right, Candy. No right to make that decision without me. I deserved to know. Her eyes filled with tears. I know, she whispered, but I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you'd hate me. I did hate you, I admitted coldly. But now I'm starting to think you're not even the one I should hate the most. That was when the idea struck me. Jake had done more than betray me. He'd ruined my life. And from the sound of it, he'd abandoned Candy too. Maybe it was time he faced some consequences. That afternoon, while Candy put Lily down for a nap, I started my search. Jake was still running the IT company we had built together. I checked his social media first, scrolling through the curated perfection of his life. Lavish vacations, expensive cars, pictures with colleagues laughing at conferences. There was no sign of any fallout. I wasn't surprised, but it stoked my fury. He'd walked away scot-free, while I'd spent 3 years living in the wreckage. Next, I dug through my emails. Buried in the archives were old project files, contracts, and a few questionable expense reports I'd flagged before I left the company. Jake had always been a little too comfortable bending the rules, and I wondered if I could find something that might hit him where it hurt. I was so engrossed that I didn't notice Candy standing behind me until she cleared her throat. "What are you doing?" she asked cautiously. "Cleaning up some unfinished business," I said without looking up. She frowned. "Tim, please don't go after Jake. I came back because I need your help, not because I want revenge." I turned to face her, the frustration spilling over. "Do you have any idea what I've been through, Candy? He destroyed my marriage. You destroyed my marriage. And now you think I should just let him get away with it?" "This isn't about Jake," she said quietly. "It's about Lily. She's innocent in all this, Tim." Her words hit harder than I expected. I glanced toward the living room where Lily was playing with her toys, giggling softly to herself. She didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire. But that didn't mean Jake did. "Fine," I said, shutting the laptop. "For now." That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Candy's explanations had been too neat. Something about them felt off. If Jake was so eager to avoid responsibility, why hadn't he done more to make sure Candy stayed quiet? And why had she really come back after all this time? When I was sure she was asleep, I grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter. It was unlocked, and I quickly started scanning through her messages. Most were mundane, texts from friends, reminders about Lily's pediatric appointments. But then I found a thread from a blocked number. It was recent, just a few days old. Blocked number. "You think you can just run back to him and everything will be fine?" Candy. I didn't have a choice. Block number. "You'll regret this, Candy. He doesn't know everything, does he?" My chest tightened. Whoever this was, they knew something I didn't. And judging by Candy's response, it was something big. I put the phone back where I found it, my heart pounding. Candy had come back into my life uninvited, and now she was dragging me into a mess I didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I could barely look at Candy without my blood boiling. Those texts had been playing on a loop in my mind all night. Someone out there knew something Candy wasn't telling me. And if she thought she could keep me in the dark, she was dead wrong. I waited until Lily was napping before confronting her. Candy was in the kitchen, unpacking groceries, when I walked in and placed her phone on the counter. "Who's the blocked number?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. Her face froze. "What?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about, Candy. The messages. You'll regret this? He doesn't know everything. What don't I know?" Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the counter. "You went through my phone?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I did," I said coldly. "And I'd do it again if it means getting the truth. So start talking, or I swear to God, I'll find out myself." For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me like a cornered animal. Then, with a shaky breath, she finally spoke. "It's Jake," she said. "He's been threatening me ever since I decided to come back." I narrowed my eyes. "Threatening you how?" "He doesn't want me to tell anyone about what happened." She hesitated, her gaze darting to the floor. "About the things he's done." "What things, Candy?" I demanded. "Stop dancing around it and just say it." She looked up at me, tears brimming in her eyes. "Jake didn't just abandon us, Tim. He wanted me to keep quiet about his other affairs, the ones with women from work." "Jesus Christ," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "This just keeps getting better." "There's more," she said, her voice cracking. "He made me sign an NDA before I left. He said if I ever talked about him, he'd ruin me. He said he'd make sure no one believed me. And when I came back here, I broke that agreement. I stared at her, trying to process everything. So what, Candy? You came back to me because you need a shield? Someone to protect you from Jake? No, she said quickly, stepping toward me. I came back because I didn't know where else to go. I thought maybe you'd help me, that you'd understand. Understand, I barked, my voice rising. Candy, you cheated on me with my boss, ran off for 3 years, and then came back expecting me to pick up the pieces. And now you're telling me you're wrapped up in some kind of scandal that could destroy both of us. She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. I couldn't believe the audacity of her. Why didn't you tell me this before? I pressed. Why keep lying? Because I was scared, she cried. I knew you wouldn't forgive me. And I knew if I told you the truth, you'd hate me even more. Well, congratulations, I said bitterly. Mission accomplished. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, trying to make sense of everything. Jake's threats, the NDA, the other women, it was like peeling back layers of rot, only to find more decay underneath. Part of me wanted to burn it all down, to take everything I knew and blow Jake's world apart. But I couldn't ignore the risk. If Candy was telling the truth, going after Jake could backfire spectacularly. That night, I decided to dig deeper. If Jake wanted to keep me in the dark, then I'd make damn sure to shine a light on everything he was hiding. The next morning, I told Candy I had a work meeting and headed to Jake's office instead. I hadn't set foot in that building since the day I quit, but walking through those doors felt like stepping into enemy territory. I asked the receptionist if Jake was available, and to my surprise, she said he wasn't in. He's working remotely today, she said cheerfully. Can I leave him a message for you? No, thanks, I said, forcing a smile. I'll catch him later. I left the building and sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Jake wasn't there, but that didn't mean I couldn't find out what he was up to. I pulled out my phone and opened the tracker app. Marvin, the private investigator I'd once hired, had recommended years ago. I'd almost forgotten I still had it installed. To my shock, it showed Jake's location not at his home, but at a nearby hotel. My jaw clenched. If Jake thought he could hide from me, he was about to learn how wrong he was. I arrived at the hotel and parked in the back lot, out of sight. My heart was pounding as I walked into the lobby and scanned the room. Sure enough, there he was, sitting in a corner booth with a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger, blonde, and leaning in close, laughing at whatever Jake was saying. I snapped a quick photo with my phone, then stepped outside to call Marvin. Marvin, it's Tim, I said when he picked up. I need your help again. Jake? He asked immediately, as if he already knew. Yeah, I said. And this time, I want to make sure he regrets every damn thing he's done. Marvin was as sharp as ever. By the time I met him the next morning, he'd already started digging into Jake's affairs. We sat at a coffee shop a few miles from my house, and he laid out everything he'd uncovered so far. This guy has skeletons, Tim, Marvin said, sliding a folder across the table. And not the kind you bury too deep. I opened the folder to find photos, documents, and emails that painted a damning picture. Jake had a pattern: affairs with women in his company, NDAs to keep them quiet, and misuse of company funds to bankroll his escapades. There were even whispers of a harassment claim he'd paid off years ago, though Marvin couldn't find solid proof yet. And this, Marvin said, tapping one photo in particular, is from yesterday. It was a close-up shot of Jake with the blonde woman at the hotel. They were holding hands, looking far too cozy for it to be a business meeting. So, what's your plan? Marvin asked, leaning back in his chair. I stared at the photo, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to storm into Jake's office and confront him outright. But another part knew I had to be smarter than that. Jake had spent years covering his tracks. If I was going to take him down, I needed to do it the right way. I want to expose him, I said finally. All of it. The affairs, the money, everything. Marvin nodded. That's doable. But you need to be careful. Guys like Jake don't go down without a fight. That evening, I returned home to find Candy in the living room with Lily. She was reading her a bedtime story, her voice soft and soothing. For a moment, I just stood there watching them. No matter how much anger I felt toward Candy, seeing her with Lily reminded me that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. Jake had used people, hurt them, and walked away without consequence. That had to stop. After Lily was asleep, I sat Candy down in the kitchen. I know about the other women, I said bluntly. She flinched, but she didn't deny it. What do you want me to say, Tim? I want to know if you're willing to help me take him down, I said, or if you're just here to hide. Her eyes widened. Take him down? How? I have a private investigator working on it, I explained. We're building a case. Financial misconduct, affairs, harassment. But if we're going to make this stick, I need you to tell the truth. Candy looked away, her hands twisting in her lap. Do you have any idea what you're asking me? If I speak out, he'll destroy me. Candy, I said, my voice firm but not unkind, he's already destroyed us. This is your chance to fight back. She didn't answer right away. When she finally looked at me, there were tears in her eyes. I'll think about it. The next week was a whirlwind. Marvin uncovered more dirt on Jake, including emails that hinted at fraudulent expenses and a shady offshore account. Meanwhile, I contacted an attorney who specialized in corporate whistleblowing. With Candy's NDA in place, we needed to tread carefully, but the lawyer assured me we had enough to make Jake sweat. Candy, however, remained hesitant. Every time I pressed her to testify, she'd shut down or change the subject. I couldn't tell if it was fear or guilt or both, but it was clear she wasn't ready to take a stand. Then, one evening, everything changed. It was late, and I was in the kitchen reviewing the files Marvin had sent me when Candy burst in, her face pale and panicked. What's wrong? I asked, standing up. It's Jake, she said, holding up her phone. He just called me. He knows what you're doing. My stomach dropped. What did he say? He threatened to ruin me, Tim. He said if I don't leave town, he'll make sure I lose Lily. The rage I'd been holding back for weeks finally boiled over. That son of a... Tim, stop, she cried, grabbing my arm. He's dangerous. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I snapped. He's scared. That's why he's lashing out. Candy shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You don't know what he's capable of. Then help me stop him, I said, my voice rising. Candy, this is your chance to make things right. If you stay silent, he wins. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression a mix of fear and determination. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll do it. The next morning, we met with Marvin and the lawyer. Candy shared everything, her affair with Jake, his threats, and the other women she knew about. It was painful to hear, but I kept my focus on the bigger picture. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about holding Jake accountable. With Candy's testimony and Marvin's evidence, we had enough to file a formal complaint with the company's board. The lawyer assured us that once the investigation began, Jake's web of lies would start to unravel. But even as we took those steps, I knew this was just the beginning. Jake wasn't the type to go down quietly, and the fallout would be messy. Still, for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope.